Hey everyone, what's up? It's Phil Gerbishak again. Today, we have a special treat. I'm a huge fan of servant leadership, and today I get to talk to Art Barter. He's the CEO of, get this, the Servant Leadership Institute, which is awesome. It's an organization that helps people and organizations put servant leadership into practice. So you can actually do this stuff. It's got hands-on training, coaching, events, publications, and other programs. And because, many of us like Art are a glutton for punishment, he's also the CEO and cultural architect of Datron World Communications, an organization he transformed, get this, from $10 million to $200 million in just 6 years by putting into practice the behaviors of servant leadership. And of course, he's got a cool new book out called The Art of Servant Leadership 2. So how you doing today, Art?
Doing great, Phil. Thank you for having me on. I'm honored and thrilled to be with you today.
Cool. Well, I'm honored that you're here. So first question is, I got to know the Art of Servant Leadership 2. Is it just coincidence that your name's Art, or did you do that on purpose?
Well, yeah, the first one that was written was called The Art of Servant Leadership, and it was about the Datron story on how it got started. So we just continued that with The Art of Servant Leadership 2, and we got into how we actually implemented servant leadership. So, it was, the title of the book was named after me. You don't see a last name in there because, we still believe it's a work of art, leadership. And so it applies to anyone who has any other name. So just not people that have art. Yeah.
That's good. Well, it's a lot catchier than the Phil of servant leadership. That would be kind of weird.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Very cool. So I'm in reading the book, one of the things that struck me that I thought was really cool is that you're also a fan of Dr. Ken Blanchard. So talk to me a little bit about how you got introduced to Dr. Blanchard's work and how you've applied his work in your organization.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm a big believer in Ken's work. Read all his books throughout my leadership years. Had a chance to meet him through my church in April of 2003. And he came to our church one night during the week to talk about leadership. And we met him at the back door. We brought him in. We had a group of men that prayed him up. And one of our guys says, do you bring your books to sell? And Ken kind of looked at us kind of funny and says, well, what do you mean, did I bring your books? And he said, well, our speakers bring books to sell. He says, I didn't come here to sell books. I came here to teach. And, I never met Ken until that night. And I saw a teacher at heart, not a businessman trying to sell books. Ken and I became friends. He became a mentor of me. And that night he challenged me through my faith and asked me, do I really believe what I believe? And if I do believe it, then I don't have a choice. I have to be a servant leader. And no one had ever challenged me in my leadership through my belief system, and so through my faith. And, he got my attention that year, and he became a good friend, a great mentor. He's been part of the servant leadership conferences every year since we started. Always comes and shares his wisdom with us. I attend his Lead Like Jesus events. And so that was the start of seeing the heart of Ken Blanchard, not just the books of Ken Blanchard. And had a chance to meet Margie, his wife, and just fell in love with him. And it's history. And he's helped me develop as a servant leader. He started the mindset change in 2003, and some events in my my business life in 2004 just kind of cemented that I really need to change who I was and become a servant leader. And at the end of 2004, made the decision that when we bought Datron, we were going to implement servant leadership, and that was the start of implementing that in our business.
Cool. Well, before we get started into servant leadership, I got to know what is your favorite book by Ken? Because he's got so many books to choose from, and then I promise we'll talk about you. But I'm a big Ken fan. I think it's important to level set here.
Well, he just came out with a new book called Servant Leadership in Action, and what I like about that, he worked on it for the last couple of years. He got a bunch of servant leaders to write chapters. I have a chapter in the book, and I think that's probably one of his best books. The 1 Minute Manager had a big impact on how I looked at how I managed my time. Well Done is a great book to help leaders understand the power of positive feedback to employees. and reward them for things that they do well. And I think he did one with Gary Ridge that kind of hit home with me. I don't recall the title of it. But I read just about everything he puts out. And I always kid Ken. He gets kidding inside. He says, Margie asks him all the time, when are you going to write a book by yourself? You keep writing books with everybody else. When are you going to write a book by yourself? And so we give him heat on, he always partners with somebody. So those are the ones that I like. But the one he worked a couple of years putting together with a bunch of servant leaders was Servant Leadership in Action, that just came out a couple of months ago. So
awesome.
that's my favorite. He asked John Maxwell to write the foreword, and he says, well, hey, everybody I would think about writing something about this book is already in the book, so why don't we just recognize those people? And so that was a fun project to be working on with them.
Cool. Yeah. Very, very cool. It sounds like a great book. I'll have to get a copy of it. I've seen it. I just haven't had time to pick it up. But awesome. Servant Leadership in Action by Dr. Ken Blanchard and Friends.
And Friends, exactly.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. So as we start here, a little bit more about the book and the topic, but Art, what's the difference between just leadership and servant leadership? Because to me, it's so important that we understand this distinction so we can move forward.
Yeah, I've been in I call it the power model of leadership most of my career up until 2003 when Ken challenged me. And, I look back at the characteristics of that leadership model, and most of the time I was working for public companies, usually in a senior finance or operation role. And, it was all about the short term. I can't remember any public company I worked for that was more concerned about the long term. It was always about the short term. And most of them didn't care how they got their short-term results as long as they met their revenue and profit projections, which meant they put more emphasis on profit than they did on people. And, I had some good companies that we had a lot of fun at, but I can't recall any company who really invested in the employees the way they should have. Yeah, they had little programs here and there. But when I look at the servant leadership and what we've done and focused on, we put people first. And I think the biggest difference is in our values at Datron World is our number one value is our families come first. And, when you look at public companies in the power model, I'm not sure you're going to see family mentioned in their values. Most of the time you don't see that. It's all about the corporation, their mission purpose. We put families first. And the reason we do that is we want our employees, their families, when they hear the word Datron, we want them to smile and not frown. And the reason we want that is we don't want them to hear the word Datron and think about that's the company that took my grandparents or my parents, my brother and sisters away from family events because they were working all the time. And they were just used to get profits. We want them to go, hey, this company cares about us. And so we're very, very strict on that part of what we do because we feel that this company will survive without any one of us, even me. If I have family that needs me, we're expected to go take care of family first and then take care of business second. And there's all kinds of ways to do that. One of the side effects from that number one value came about 5 years ago when we had an employee that had been with us for almost 35 years. Her husband was passing away. His last season of his life with cancer. And she took time off. And she ran out of PTO time. And she was going to be in a situation where she didn't have any income. The employees here got together on their own, donated their PTO time to this employee so that she wouldn't go without a paycheck for that time period. And people gave up their earned paid time off to help this employee. And we went, that's what Family First is all about. Everybody's on board with Family First. And that's the biggest difference between the two. We care about people. Profits will come. Revenue will come. If you take care of the people that you're serving, both your customer and your employees first, everything else will fall in place. So we don't focus on profits, we focus on people.
Wow. Focusing on people instead of profits, to me, Makes a lot of sense. That's how I try to, run my small business. It's me, and then I have, other folks that I work with. But how do we, you're $100 million business, though, Art. I mean, don't you worry about getting taken advantage of by employees that are just going to abuse the system, or how do you not worry about that if you don't?
Well, we came up with a purpose for the company that we wanted to positively impact the lives of others today and in the future. And we had to come up with a way for our employees to live that purpose. And so what we started in 2005, we established the Datron Charitable Fund. And we contribute 10% of our operating profit every quarter into the charitable fund. And it's like a 401k account. Once the money goes in, the company can't get it back. We don't manage it. Fidelity is our company that manages it. It's called a donor advised fund. But we don't allow any grant requests to come in from the outside. We only allow our employees to submit grant requests to direct where that money should go. And, that part of it, when you give your employees the ability to give $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, or $20,000 to an organization that's helped their family, whether it be cancer, heart, MS, epilepsy, whatever it might be on their heart, they're able to take some of that money that they help the company earn and give it away to a nonprofit that means something to them. And that's the way we helped our employees participate in the purpose of the company outside of the customers. Now, on the customer side, we share stories all the time on the impact they have. Now, one of my favorite stories is we did business in Zimbabwe a long time ago. Our customer there was the police, and they wanted to have great communications during riots. They didn't have a great president, so they knew they were going to have demonstrations. They wanted to control those demonstrations with great communications so they didn't have to bring out weapons. And I told the gentleman in charge, the comms officer, I said, I will help you do that. And about 6 years later, there was an article written by the Associated Press that said the recent elections in Zimbabwe were the least violent in the country's history. And I took that article and got everybody together and says, guys, this is why we do what we do. We just help have a country have the least violent elections in their history. Now, they just changed leaders last year. They did it right. There wasn't any bloodshed. They have a great heart of people over there, and we want to help them be better at who they are and do things the right way. And so we share stories about our customers and how we help them. We give our employees the ability to give away money that they help to earn. And that really gets them engaged in the mission and purpose of the company. And that, I think, is what helps people go, the company is serious about their mission and purpose. And when they realize that we're serious about it, and we're serious about serving others first, we don't have to worry about people taking advantage of us. That part of the equation goes away because you develop a trust level with the employees that you're really behaving what you talk about. You're behaving the talk is what we like to say. And when you do that, you build trust. And when the trust is high, I don't have situations like that I have to worry about of employees taking advantage.
Wow.
Now, I will tell you, Phil, the toughest thing I did was to change the culture to servant leadership. And the reason why, I couldn't put the results of the company on hold. I still had to make profits. I still had to pay payroll. I couldn't ask people to go without pay for a year while I changed the culture. So while I'm asking people to change their behavior, starting with me, I also had to get results. And that is the toughest thing that a leader will do is when you have to change a culture and get results at the same time. It's not soft. It's not something that people think it's servant leadership is just soft. It's the toughest thing a leader will do. Changing a culture and getting results at the same time. Yeah.
Wow. So how that, I mean, that's incredible, to be quite honest with you. So how do you, I mean, has no employee ever quit? I mean, do you have 0% turnover? How do you, or if not, how do you instill this in brand new employees? Because, trust takes time, man. We've known each other now almost 19 minutes. I mean, how do you do that, Art?
Well, it's all through trust. We started in late 2005 tracking a trust index that we learned from Stephen and Mark Covey. And we asked a couple of questions of our employees. Do you trust your boss? Yes or no? And then we ask, do you trust management? Yes or no. There's no place to fill out and write a dissertation. I don't want 5 paragraphs. I want you to say, yes, I trust my boss, or no, I don't. And we started that index and we started tracking it. I will tell you, last year, our voluntary turnover rate was less than 5%. Less than 5%. Our trust in the last 3 years have increased over 17%. And our leadership trust, because we asked one other question within the leadership team, do you trust each other? That, when we started, was at 50%. And the last 2 years, we've been at 100%. The leadership team here trusts themselves implicitly. Now, when you have that kind of trust in an organization, guess what? People want to perform and stay with the company they're working for. They don't want to leave. The turnover that we have is, we believe our job is to help people be successful in life. There isn't a requirement for them to stay within the 4 walls of Datron, because we believe if there's an opportunity that an employee has grown into and we can't provide them with that opportunity where they're growing into, let them go find that opportunity outside the company and celebrate that growth. Don't get all uptight because you lose an employee and you've got to hire someone. You've helped people grow to the point where they get to move on in life. Celebrate that and help them move on in a positive way. Don't get all bummed out because you're losing another employee. And that mindset in servant leadership is, I want to help people grow. There isn't any requirement for them to stay within Datron for me to help them grow. I don't hold that back because they have aspirations to go at the levels that we can't provide for them. We help them get what they want out of life. And when you do that, people know you really care about them. And when you really care about them, people will do just about anything for you.
Wow. So do you think the reason that more organizations don't do this, Art, is because that cultural shift is so great that they're worried about not having a profitable quarter? I mean, does being private help you in any way, do you think?
Being private definitely helps me. And I won't shy away from that. But definitely, because if I decide I want to lose money for a couple of quarters, I can make that decision. All right. Being private has helped me mentor people in ways that you can't do in a public company, because there is a focus on profits in a public company. One of the things we learned about 4 years into it, we did some analysis on the training program that we established and had entered into with our employees. We did a study with a PhD out of Berkeley, and what we found is companies usually don't see dramatic results improvement from leadership training until the 4th or 5th year after the training begins. And if you go into a company to change a culture that already has a culture, it will take you 8 years to change the culture. Now, think of a power-led company that's all about profit sitting down with their board of directors and saying, I want to change the culture, and it's going to take me 8 years to do it. That's going to be a tough conversation in the boardroom, right? I mean, nobody gets a pass on profits. Nobody gets a. So you have to take it in steps. And what we help people understand is you still have to get results. You can't put those results on hold. So you still have to take care of business, but you also have to allow people time to change that culture and where you want to be. And I can tell you, time after time after time, corporations have gone down this path. They see dramatic turnarounds in their results, dramatic turnaround in their relationships with their customers, with their franchisees, if they're in that business. Popeye's Chicken's a great example. Cheryl Batchelder, it took her about 8 years to turn around their relationship with the franchisee owners. And she got amazing results. And she told me, Art, she says, your 8 years, where have you got that? Your 8 years is dead on. That's exactly what it took her to change the culture at that company. So leaders who are looking for a quick fix to save their backs, right? I've got to have 10% or 20% improvement profits, and if servant leadership can get me there in the next 60 days or 90 days, I'll do it. No, it's not a quick fix. Culture is not a quick fix. It takes work, and it's a long-term issue. You've got to balance out changing the culture at the right speed for your organization that allows them to learn and grow, and at the same time perform and serve your customers and therefore get results. And it's a balance. And what worked for Datron World may not work for for a lot of companies around, or it may work, or there may be bits and pieces that will work. And what I firmly believe is I don't take John Maxwell's input and just implement it. I don't take Ken's input and just implement it, or Stephen M. R. Covey's, or any other leadership gurus out there. I take bits and pieces from each one, and I figure out what's going to work for my people, my staff, and my company. And I get to decide what I'm going to implement and how I'm going to implement it. People are too quick to take the latest and greatest thing they read in HBR or whatever they read. I'm going to go try that. And the kiss of death for leaders is when they tell the people we're going to try this, because try has zero commitment behind it. Try means, you know what, we're going to give this a try and see if I can get the results. And if I don't, it doesn't work, so we're going to change to something new. It's a kiss of death for any program when a leader stands up and says, we're going to try this for a while. So I gave you a couple of tidbits there and kind of got off the track a little bit.
No, not at all. No, yeah. That's good. That's really good. No, because those were going to be follow-up questions that I asked. So you have some good stuff. So, you said try is bad. So what is the, other than commit, right? Like really lay the plan down. I mean, what's the first step, Art? If I want to start my company, obviously buy a copy of your book. I mean, that's a good first step to understand the fundamentals in your story. But what's the first step? If I want some action here, how do I start towards this if I'm a leader? And can only the CEO start this, or can it start bottom up?
We get that question all the time. We get the comment, my CEO doesn't believe in servant leadership. And that's okay. Why don't you start it within your department? Well, I need permission from my CEO. I go, with all due respect, I will tell you flat out that you don't need permission from anyone to treat people with dignity and respect. So let's start with dignity and respect first. Why don't you change your behavior? And why don't you decide to serve first instead of waiting for people to give you things? Why don't you give them what they need ahead of time or on schedule and do what you say you were going to do and treat people with dignity and respect? You can start doing that today in whatever environment you're in. You don't need permission from anybody to start treating others with dignity and respect. A lot of organizations will start within a department or a group, and after a year or so, they'll start getting results, and management will go, hey, what's going on down there in Phil's department? Because Phil's getting things done on time. He's getting it done under budget. They've been able to take on more work. Why is that team so happy? Why are they having fun? And usually what happens is the rest of the organization sees that you're getting results, and then someone else steps in and says, tell me what you're doing. And that ball gets started over in that department. And then it gets started over here in this department. And before you know it, guess what happens? The ball gets started, but you can't stop it. One of our biggest clients is in the health industry. They started implementing servant leadership in a group in Texas. They now use our training material in 48 states in all their organizations. And it got started because one person down in one of their organizations said, I want to start this culture change. So it can start small. You can start from the CEO level, but I will tell you, whatever the CEO is going through, if it's public, private, there may be pressures on them to get performance in the next 90 to 180 days, and that's okay. Just realize you're going to have to balance that out with them. But when you start in a small group, decide to serve people. The second thing you can do is start building trust with people. And when you treat them with dignity and respect and they really know you care, they're going to start trusting you. So, study trust. Get Stephen M. R. Covey's The Speed of Trust. It's a great book on how to build trust in your organization. Because once you start building trust with relationships, now you can have those conversations on values and mission and purpose and where you want to take it. Because people will trust you. So decide to serve other people first, put others above yourself, and think about other people. And if you look at the traditional leadership model, right, it's got the CEO at top. I take that and I turn it upside down. I'm actually at the bottom of my pyramid in the company. I turn it upside down. I'm at the bottom. My job is to serve everybody in the organization. And that's the way our leadership performs. Is we're here to help people. We're here to inspire them and equip them to to positively impact people they influence. And, you know, it can start in a small group, or it can start in a big group, or it can start in between. And so don't wait. You can start with yourself, because leaders have to start with themselves first. They can't ask other people to change if they're not willing to change themselves.
That's a beautiful way to wrap us up here, Art, that we can start by changing ourselves. As leaders, we can sell more, lead better, and do better in the world by being a servant leader ourselves, by treating people with dignity and respect. So the book is The Art of Servant Leadership 2. How you get results is more important than the results themselves, which I really dig. Art, I've got all your books. Your team sent them over to me. They're fantastic, man. I really appreciate the time you took today. This has been humbling, man, because you've got great stuff. The book is comes out actually. You can probably pre-order it now. I'll pop a link on Amazon in the notes. But Art, thank you from the bottom of my heart, man. This is so good and so helpful. So thank you so much.
Yeah, Phil, thanks for having me on. If I can challenge everybody out there today that follows you, you know, take this to your personal life. You know, if we decide to serve the life instead of the ideology with dignity and respect, guess what this world can come into? So let's go serve lives and set the ideology aside. And when a life comes in front of us to serve them the same way you would serve any other life. And let's get out of this other nonsense. Just treat everybody with dignity and respect, and let's go change the world together so it can be a better place for everybody.
Awesome. Change the world together, folks. One at a time here. Nate Brown, thanks for being here with us as well. Art, you're a pleasure, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Phil. My pleasure. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.